Welcome back to the Building Materials and Construction class. In the last previous part of the sessions, you have come across the stones, how they have been extracted, and what are the different types of finishes that were being given for the construction purpose. Later on, you have also studied the causes for deterioration of the stones and what are the precaution or preventive measures to be taken for the conservation or what we call it as a preservation of the stones. Later on, you have also come across even for the type of the preservatives used and the methodology adopted for it. Okay? The stones were earlier used for the larger scale or even for the smaller scale construction purpose. But the extraction of the stones for a far away places has made some of the economical drawbacks. What are those? The cost of transportation may be more, the material cost will also be more, and in this regard there is a need for the another requirement of the material. What kind of the material, how it can be extracted. In a period of 3,000 to 5,000 years back, you can see the brickwork has been utilized. The material we call it as a brick. How the bricks are extracted, how they have been manufactured, and how they have been utilized for the construction activities, let us get to know one by one. The term brick, it refers to the color which is and the shape. If you take it as an example, it is a rectangular in shape. It is solid in nature. What about the color if you're going to take up? Color if you're going to take up, we call it as a reddish in color or reddish brown. Now, when we see the physical feature of the brick, the next question arises, what are its ingredients? Okay, ingredients of brick. The common ingredients of the brick are mainly alumina, the clay content itself, especially the silica content, lime, and next one we come across for iron content and then magnesia. These are one and the same itself only, alumina content. Normally, the clay is in one of the ingredients where you can see the utilization even for making a pot or the earthen part of an vessels. Okay? These are the examples where the clay has been utilized. The main ingredient is the clay. What does the clay consist of? Clay, along with respect to other soil conditions, it is mixed in nature. It is not available completely in the pure form. Therefore, there is a need for extraction for the brick materials. We call it as raw materials. Let us take alumina. Alumina, it also imparts the essential plasticity towards the brick condition. Silica also, there are various ranges of percentages, whereas lime has to be present in less quantities. Alumina and silica, if they are present in larger part of the quantity is not a problem. The ratio has to be maintained. Whereas, if you take in the case of the lime, what happens? The excess of the lime, it will render the brick to be brittle in nature. That is the one thing. And iron content. Percentage of the iron, where the redness content, if you go for observing it, okay, it is mainly the reason of iron content. Next, magnesia content. Magnesia, it adds the hardness also, and it has to be present in a lesser quantity. Why? What is the reason? The amalgamation of the chemical compounds takes place at a very rapid rate, thereby reducing the unwanted oxide formations and all. If high amount of magnesia is being utilized, it causes the bricks to decay at a rapid rate. Therefore, for the higher temperature ranges, when the brick has been burned in that particular aspects, the magnesia also play a very important role. Now, when we know these ingredients, there is also some of the materials like pebbles and all those things. What are those? We call it as harmful materials. Harmful materials. What are those harmful materials? One point is to be made clear. Whenever you wanted to extract or manufacture brick or any blocks, or in the case of the cement or in the concrete, the ingredients or the raw materials which you are going to use should be free from the impurities. Otherwise, the quality will decline, rendering much more porous content. Now, harmful ingredients mean, first thing it comes into mind, it is the excess of the lime content. As I already mentioned, lime content in excess of the quantities renders the formation of the oxides, and it causes the bricks to break up easily. That is the one condition. Another thing we come across, it is related to the pebbles. What are those pebbles? These are the fragments of the rocks which are being present, or even we call it as boulders also, large size. That particles or maybe the fragments has to be sorted out before taking for the manufacturing. If not, the void content will be more and makes the brick to gain lesser part of the strength and hardness also. Third one, we have organic matter also, or what we call it as a vegetative matter. Organic matter is the growth of the vegetation or the crops. When they are dried, they remain in the wet or maybe in dry form after their death and decay. That part of ingredients shall not be present. Again, it leads to the decrease in the strength, and if the microorganisms are being attached for the organic matter, thereby it leads to the decay of the organic matter. Obviously, porous content will be more. It renders the stability of the brick to be decline in nature. That is one condition. Next part, the amount of the silica as well as the alumina content should be also less in nature. Excess of the magnesia also causes the decay. Here, another harmful materials we take upon is iron pyrite. Iron pyrite, which are extracted in the ore minerals extraction, if they are being present in the earthen part of the materials, it gives much more reddish in color, but when it is being touched or maybe if it is being compressed, it will break up easily. Though it imparts the color to the brick, but it has to be present in the lesser part of the concentration. Any of the material, if you take it for the manufacturing, they have to be in an optimal range. If they are not in an optimal range, then definitely any one of the quality or the parameters which are assessed for the good requirements shall not be able to meet up the standards. That we need to think about it. Okay. Here these are the harmful materials. To list up, there are many much materials, even in the case of the calcium content also, along with the magnesia, calcium content that has to be lesser in nature. Again, in the presence of any of the organic compounds, organic matter or maybe vegetative matter, even the presence of the organic compounds tends to be detrimental for the manufacturing of the brick. It does not impart plasticity conditions, not toughness conditions, and it also weakens the fire resistance capacity of the bricks. Care has to be taken for it. Now when we come across for the shape or the color and the ingredients of the brick, alumina, silica, lime, iron and magnesia. In addition to that, there will be small content of remaining portion of the minerals. Completely we cannot be able to eliminate it, but we can able to maintain a certain trace concentration. Nevertheless, let us move on to the next part. Now, how to prepare or manufacture the bricks. Let us get to know. Manufacturing of bricks. How the manufacturing process is being carried out. There are 4 steps in the manufacturing of the bricks. First one is to collect. So therefore, we call it as a preparation of the clay material. Preparation of clay material. After you prepare the clay material, next step we come across is moulding. You need to mold it to cast into the definite regular geometrical shapes. And after moulding, you need to send it for drying purpose. And fourth one is mainly related to the burning of bricks. These are the 4 main functional features of manufacturing of bricks. You might have seen the brickwork in the case of the stupas in Bauddha Viharas, which were during the time of Ashoka. The Buddhism has spread to the greater extent. You can also see the largest brick structure of the stupa in Sri Lanka region. Similarly, Basilica Church, as well as even in the case of the pavement of the roads, the brickwork were utilized during those olden days. And brick fort were also utilized. They were also used for the small scale construction purpose, either maybe for the arches or maybe for the chimney processing like that. There are many more examples. We'll get to know all these things in a later part when we cover up all the manufacturing process of the bricks, because manufacturing process, it involves major entities like preparation, molding, drying and burning. If you need to properly understand, the in-depth knowledge is required. How do we prepare the clay material? Now let us take the first part is preparation of clay material. How do you go for preparing the material? Which region is available? A proper vegetative growth or where the loamy soil or the clay soil content is more, that is suitable for the manufacturing of brick. Not like a sandy soil completely or any sea sand and all. They are not utilized because even the presence of the salt constituents will tend to cause efflorescence in the bricks. They will absorb the salt content, therefore making the water absorption content to be more, thereby creating the voidness into the maximum extent, causing the deterioration of the bricks also. Now, in the preparation of the clay material, what are the processing steps? Please do remember, in the first class I have stated that any of the material, if you take it, there has to be a raw material. It has to undergo the manufacturing process where the impurities are being removed, products are obtained with the byproducts also. Usage is left to the wise knowledge, like how to go for utilizing even the raw materials, maintaining the proper quality and proper management. If you take in the case of the preparation of the clay, there are 5 steps in the preparation of the clay. What are those? Whatever the material you take it on the surface or maybe the soil condition, there is a vegetative growth and all. They are present in many more layers. You need to go for digging. That is the first step. First step, it is digging. After digging, next step is unsoiling. Unsoiling. Third step, after it is unsoiled, it has to be subjected for the removal of the pebbles or any boulders or larger portion of the materials or the lumps which are being present, because lime is responsible for the formation of the lumps, as I earlier mentioned, and it is a harmful ingredient that has to be removed. We call it as a cleaning process. Fourth one, if you go for taking after the cleaning, they have to be subjected for weathering phenomena, means exposure to atmosphere. Weathering. After weathering, it has to be subjected for the blending, for proper mixing of the materials. At the last stage, before the preparation of the mold, it has to be tempered. We call it as tempering. There are various sorts of the layers of soil which are present. As I have said, loamy soil or the clay content has to be more in nature. Therefore, care has to be taken in such a manner to reduce it. Now, moving on to the digging. What is meant by digging? Whatever the topmost portion of soil, they are present with the vegetative matter or any other earth ingredients, they have to be removed, or it has to be tilled out by using plow or maybe shovel. That we call it as a digging of the material. Next, unsoiling. The digging is carried out for 20 centimeter, or we call it as 200 mm here, to remove all those ingredients, vegetative matter or cover, even the roots or the dead and decayed parts or the humic substances, which tend to cause the disruption in the quality of the bricks. That has to be removed out. Unsoiling. Unsoiling, it is carried out, means taking the layers of the soil to a depth of at least starting from 60 centimeter to 120 centimeter. This process of phenomena is carried out, okay, 60 to 120 centimeter, followed by the cleaning process. Even though if you extract the soil contents that contains some pebbles or boulders or any mineral fragments, that has to be reduced or sorted. That sorting is what we call it as, in other wise sense, cleaning process. It has to be cleaned to remove all the pebbles or the boulders, and the clay has to be washed and screened. That we call it as cleaning. It has to be washed properly because particles which are sticking to each other to be removed, and it has to be screened. Screening serves as a purpose to the particles which we take it as a whole or a lumps itself, they have to be reduced. For that purpose, screening serves as a necessary tool in order to separate the larger fragmented particles to smaller fragmented particles. That gradation has to be completed. Next step is weathering. What is meant by weathering? Process of exposing the material to the atmosphere. Process of exposing the material to the atmosphere means it has to be subjected for the sunlight, rain, moisture content, humidity, temperature variation, daytime hot in nature, nighttime cool in nature. These diurnal variations takes place. The weathering is subjected to make the clay harden in nature, because though it will be soft in nature, it has to be rendered to some proper degree of the hardness. That has to be taken up. We call it as a softening or mellowing, this weathering phenomenon. You might have come across for utilizing the magic clay or different colors which are available in the market. You take it, you place a mold, and you get a desired shape or sizes, whichever you like it. Likewise, it is softer in nature. Too much of softness should not be present. It has to be soft to the medium extent. Blending. Next step is, what is meant by blending phenomena? Blending, it refers to mixing of the materials to make the ingredients of the material as a homogeneous or uniform mixture. What is the reason if it is not in uniform? The output of the burnt product or during the drying, the cracks will tend to develop. That should not tend to happen. For that particular usages, a blending is necessary, that is a proper mixing phenomenon. Next, we come across as a tempering. How the tempering has to be carried out? Tempering has to be carried out only after the blending to the hardened extent. That means soft part of the clay, they have to be kneaded out by using a separate mill. We call it as a pug mill. What is that? Let us get to know through the diagrammatic representation. In the blending, we have come across for the usage of the clay to be fit for the next sort of the purpose, it is tempering. Fit for a softy in nature, there is softening and mellowing in nature. The softness has to be slightly hardened up. Too much of softness is not to be utilized. Therefore, in tempering, the process where the clay portion is being made to certain hard extent, not completely soft, because in the cleaning purpose you might have seen it has been washed and screened. There will be certain amount of the moisture or the water content. Even making the blending also, there will be remaining portion. That particular part, what it has to be made hard is subjected for a mill, what we call it as a pug mill. A pug mill. Whatever the lumps which are present, or if there are irregularities which are present, not distributed uniformly in nature, in that particular phases, the clay is being introduced at the top and it is closed, which consists of an iron tube completely, which is tapered in nature. A vertical shaft is also connected, consists of a horizontal arms, we call it as a distribution arms. These horizontal arms also have certain part of the sharp type projection, a triangular wedge type of a projections, we call it as a knives. What is the purpose? It is similar in the case of your home mixers or grinders which you use it. In home mixers, the blades are being provided, isn't it? Similarly, here the horizontal arms are provided with the knives. Since it is in a larger scale, it has to run through it. Therefore, the clay is being introduced and the pugging is started. When the pugging is completely started and the phenomena takes place, so that the blended portions in a complete manner, where it is to a certain degree of the hardness extent, is being made to flow at the bottom. That we call it as a pugged portion of the clay to be collected, where a ramp is being provided. This is a wooden ramp, and normally this pugged portion of the clay mill is normally, you can see, 600 to 800 mm, maybe 60 to 80 centimeter part will be made to rest on the ground portion. That is, this is the ground level, where below the ground level you can see 600 to 800 mm portion of the mill is being resting. The next stage, if you see here, the hole has been provided where the pugged portion of the clay is achieved to the certain hardened extent. It has been opened up and ramp is provided for the flow of it. This phenomena is called it as a tempering of the clay. Likewise, if the pug mill is not applicable, manually it can also be done. How? Either through the pressed in the feet of the man leg, or maybe by usage of the cattle, which is made to turn around over a certain period of the time, so that it has to be compacted, no voids content to be left in a greater manner. That particular thing or the task is completed in the tempering stages of the manufacturing or the preparation of the clay material. Next, moving on to the next part, we call it as a moulding. What is meant by moulding? Moulding, it refers to creating a material towards a desired shape and sizes. How it is being done? There are different types of moulding. If it is being done in the case of a manual through the hand, we call it as hand moulding. Hand moulding. Second one, if at all the precise or error to be minimized, therefore machines are utilized. We call it as the machine moulding. machine moulding. Hand moulding and machine moulding. These are the two types. What about in the case of the hand moulding? Again, in the case of the hand moulding, there are different extent. Let us get to know. We have a two part of the classification in the hand moulding. First one is ground molded, second one is table molded. Let us understand this, what is meant by ground molded bricks or table molded bricks. Hand moulding, it requires a labor. Slightly they have to be skilled enough for getting a proper training, because after the tempering it has to be subjected for the moulding. A moulding portion or the plate which is being utilized to cast it, okay, or in the case of any metals and all, you have a die or maybe the metal casting casings. Why they have been provided? They are provided to get a better shape and sizes. Similarly, here also ground molded is made through the labor's work. What it is? Where the bricks are being molded on the ground itself only. What does it consist of? Mainly the mould casings are provided. It is a hollow box, the mould, wherein either it may be made up of a wooden material or maybe any steel, metal or any other sorts of the metallic media. They are hollow in nature, bottom as well as upward. What they do, they sprinkle a sand over the ground to make it for a uniform layer, and a mould is dipped in the water and then placed on the ground. The pugged portion of the clay is being taken and forced inside and stacked out of it, where the surplus amount of the clay which are being remaining or the extra portions which are being remaining above the mould portion, they have been striked off by using either a metallic rim or maybe any other striker or wooden striker also, so that it is being utilized for next other moulding purpose. Likewise, they have been completed over a rows basis. This part of the molded type of the bricks, we call it as a ground molded bricks. What is the feature of this? They are mainly rough in nature, because since the bottom portion is being exposed to the sand condition, whatever the shape of the ground it may be present, if it has to be in a level extent. If it is not in the level extent, therefore whatever the brick which is being obtained, it has certain minute undulations. That care has to be taken up. Such kind of the bricks cannot be utilized properly for the load bearing walls construction purpose. Next, we come across the table molded bricks. Similar phenomena is being done, whereas except in the case of the ground, it is being carried out in table. How it is being carried out in table? It is carried out in a rectangular part of the table, 2 meter by 1 meter, where the portion of the pugged portion of the clay is being made to enter, and finally some part is being taken by the labor, where the mould is being placed on the table and they have been forcibly made into go through the mould portion. Then excess quantity are being struck off. The obtained portion of the bricks is being manufactured on the table. Then it is being rather sent for the drying purpose. That we call it as a table molded type of the bricks. Here the cost of the ground molded bricks or maybe table molded bricks, it differs, because ground molded it is less in cost, whereas a table molded it requires some precision also. Therefore, in that particular case, table molded bricks cost will be slightly higher. Cost will be higher. Cost will be higher. Next, moving on to the next sort of the molding, we call it as machine molding. In the case of the machine molding, there are two sort of the features they go for using it. One, it is plastic clay machine type of the molding. I'll take it on for this. Machine molding, there are two types. One is plastic clay molding, clay machine molding. Next is dry clay machine molding. What does the term plastic clay machine molding it refers to? Mainly, it is placed in a machine which imparts a plasticity in nature. The wet condition is being prevailed. That is passed through the machine part where the certain wires are being kept, so that whatever the portion of the bricks is being coming across, has to be manufactured in a wet form itself only. The pugged portion of the clay is made to pass through the plastic machine, the clay machine, and further they have been cut into the required shape and the sizes. That is what we call it as plastic clay molding type of the materials. Machine molding, obviously it imparts different types of the hollow blocks or maybe different types of the solid blocks in nature. These things can be done even in the dry condition, where dry condition means a certain amount of the dry clay is being taken into mill. When it is being completely taken into the mill, only optimum amount of the water is being added for the required extent. Then it is being pressed off. Therefore, you're going to get the bricks when it is being pressed on a mold. That is for a large scale extent. That we call it as the dry clay, or what we call it as the machine molded type of the bricks. These are also called as a pressed type of the bricks. Hence, let us get to know the wire cut, we call it as a plastic clay, as well as the pressed type of the bricks, we call it as a dry clay. It is said to be passed through the wire, hence we call it as a wire cut bricks. They are completely uniform in nature, size and shape. They are sharp edges, they are present, which is the requirement of the good quality of the bricks. It should not be a blunt type of the edges. It should be sharp in edges, and protrusions are being made. We call it as a frog, or the depression which is being made on the surface of the bricks, we call it as a frog. For example, you come across in a case of the bricks like M and B. The purpose of the frog is to reveal the manufacturer's identity, a trademark on this. And another thing it is being laid in a top portion. When it is being laid on a top portion, therefore, it acts as a media for covering or for the mortaring purpose when another sort of the brick is being placed over it. Hence, these kind of the protrusions we are going to call it as a frog, maybe ranging from 10 to 15 mm is being made, the protrusions. It is also available in the wire as well as even the machine cut bricks, or even in the case of the hand molded type of the bricks. Let us know what is the extent. In the case of the next part is drying of the bricks. What is meant by drying? Now we have come across the preparation of the clay material, molding part, whether it is maybe a hand molded or machine molded. Again, we have classified as ground and table molded. Plastic or the wire cut bricks, they are having larger part of the cost, because accuracy and the precision is more. In that particular cases, the wire cut bricks, it only leaves the drag portion of the mark, nothing else. That kind of the bricks are utilized to the larger extent, because it also has a proper compressive strength and hardness content, provided that it doesn't possess any harmful sort of an ingredients. Now, drying means the portion of the brick which is utilized for before the construction purpose, it has to be dried in a proper manner. Why? What is the reason why it cannot be directly taken out for the construction purpose? Only in one condition we can take it out, in which it is only in the dry clay condition purpose. Because if the bricks are not dried in a proper manner, the atmosphere content having a moisture is being observed in the bricks. It is porous in nature. These porous content tend to deteriorate upon burning conditions, which is the next stage. And you cannot utilize the molded part of the bricks without burning directly for the construction purpose. If you use it there, the strength declines, the crack develops, or the buckling phenomena tends to develop to the greater part. Finally, it tends to collapse. The load cannot be withstand by it. Hence, care has to be taken for it. In the case of the drying, it has two functions. One is to remove the moisture content which is present in excess of the quantity. It allows certain period of the time to be given, at least one seasonal period, maybe not for the 20 to 30 days, one seasonal period is required. Otherwise, soft portion of the bricks, they are brittle, they can be broken up easily. Second thing, it is the dried portion of the bricks is essential, so that once they are subjected upon the burning, makes the bricks hard in nature. Makes the bricks hard in nature. This is another understanding to be taken into consideration. Without drying, you cannot go for the burning phenomena. And you can see that when it is being subjected for a drying part, the later stage we taken up is for the burning process. What is that mainly burning process? It is the process of subjecting the bricks to higher temperature, where the ingredients or the compounds are fused together and they are making very much hard content in nature. Here, if you see the conditions allocated for the drying portion of the bricks, they have been stacked in a longitudinal as well as the cross part of an extent. They have been placed in such a manner that the three width of the bricks, if you are going to take it for a consideration, they have been stacked out in a rows longitudinally and across also, and spaces are being given at an intermediate extent, so that the amount of the wind that is being penetrating through the bricks, or the heat is also being made to penetrate, making it to be fit for the next stage. We call it as a burning of the bricks. Okay. In the next part of the class, let me go for explaining what is meant by a burning process. What are the different types of the burning which are adopted, whether it is a clam type of burning or a kiln type of the burning. The burnt bricks, when it is utilized for construction purpose, still do they have any sorts of classification, whether it is classified as class AA, class B, class C or class D type of the bricks? For all these questions, the answer will be revealed in the next part of the class. Stay tuned for it. Please recall whatever the concepts which I have covered, and please do remember all those concepts. Thank you one and all. We shall meet in the next class.